first DadSpace Dad Talks we've got in Ashford. So we're lucky enough to have Trevor here from Liquid Choices. And just a little bit about the Dad Talks. We launched the very first one in January in Maidstone. And it was something we thought about, we wanted to launch last year because we have quite a lot of sort of professionals come in and talk in our meetings, like relationship coaches and ADHD coaches we've had come in, all sorts of different pieces like that. I think it's very, very important to have those people come in. But also, I thought it was equally important to have stories from dads. You know, there's lots of dads out there that have got life-changing stories or inspiring stories that I think need to be heard. So it was a real sort of extra sort of thing that I wanted to add to DadSpace to our sessions. And yeah, like I say, the first one's gone well. And when me and Trevor had a chat last year about the work he's doing with Liquid Choices, and I thought, well, there's a bit of a story there with how Trevor's got to this point. And I think, again, you know, you're a dad, and I think it's important to, you know, to have that opportunity to come and speak about it. So that's why we're doing it. And so normally we would have our talking piece at the beginning. We're going to do that in the second half. So we'll still go around with our talking piece like we always do. We're just going to do it after Trevor's had his piece talking. And we're hopefully going to try a few of the drinks that Trevor's brought with us tonight as well. So that'd be nice. So I'll just run through a couple of things about DadSpace, which I think is important. So our vision, to provide a safe space for dads to talk, listen and share their experiences of fatherhood. We believe DadSpace should be accessible to all dads and hope to see one in every town or city. Consistency is key. We aim to offer DadSpace meetups on a regular basis. A dad knows you've always got a place to go and we've got your back. Our values: we celebrate fatherhood and we promote good communication. The impact fathers have on a young person's life is diverse, and we believe the whole family unit benefits from our sessions. DadSpace is a free space. We have no financial barriers to participate. Our core DadSpace sessions will remain free for all dads to attend and be heard. But if anyone wishes to donate, we do have two ways you can donate just behind me there, via card or via cash. We are here for each other. DadSpace facilitates a strong peer-to-peer support network from dads, known as the Brotherhood. We are also able to signpost dads to outside support and services if needed. We keep it simple. In a complex and busy world, we aim to keep DadSpace simple. Integrity and honesty is everything at DadSpace. In all our interactions, we promote respect, tolerance and mindfulness of each other's privacy and time, creating a friendly and inclusive culture for all dads. Okay? So yeah, I just want to introduce obviously Trevor and give him a round of applause for coming along tonight. And yeah, over to you if you're happy to sort of start.
Yeah, thanks Denver, and thanks everyone for coming. And I just want to say thank you to Denver, because this is something that is fantastic and I think that we all need. And I was chatting to Peter, who also started something like this in Ashford, and you know, deserves a lot of credit for that when he did that and sort of started the idea and so on. It's what we need. And chatting to Peter just before we started here, you know, we were saying, you know, oh, down the pub, would we get more people, you know? And we would, wouldn't we? We would get more people down the pub, because that's where men go, isn't it? And that's where dads go. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of dads, a lot of men, the pub is inherent in our lives and our philosophies and what we do. And as part of that, having a few beers is having a few drinks with the lads and so on. And you know, I feel quite well qualified to talk about this because, you know, in my younger years, I owned a bar in Folkestone, you know, and I think when I did do that, you know, part of the philosophy and part of the things that I was thinking about in my head was, how can I justify my drinking on a daily basis? And like, for me, it was like, I know, I'll get a bar. So we did that, me and my wife at the time, and ended up kind of getting sort of quite fully into, you know, the drinking culture and so on. And so for me, it kind of permitted me and allowed me to kind of drink on a daily basis. And I guess that's something that for a lot of us sort of happens from an early age. You know, I started drinking when I was 14. I grew up in Bexley, Heath, Bexley, that sort of area. I can remember the first time I bought drink with my mate Matt, and we sat on Gravel Hill, and we sat and drank it. And I remember feeling at the time like, this is bloody horrible. You know what I mean? I felt all woozy and disorientated and a bit like, what the bloody hell's going on? You know, but you go through it, don't you? Because you feel like you're being an adult, and you feel like you're becoming part of, you know, society and adulthood and all that sort of stuff. And I think, you know, we've kind of become, as a culture, very, very encapsulated and very, very wrapped up in sort of alcohol culture. So for me, what I wanted to do with, and I'll come on to the business in a bit, but what I wanted to do as part of, you know, my life, I sort of had a bit of an epiphany. I say I had an epiphany, I think my wife more had an epiphany, and she was like coming in sort of 10 o'clock, 10:30 every night from the bar that I had at the time in Folkestone. And, you know, she said to me basically, you know, this is sort of after the event, she sort of said a few years later, like, I never knew what kind of mood you'd come in. Do you know what I mean? And when she said that to me, that was the first time it really hit me. Like, shit, like my actions and my behaviours are really affecting other people in my life. And I was never violent. I was never like Larry in that sense. But she basically said, and obviously she didn't want to say it to me at the time because she didn't want to upset me, because she loved me and she wanted to, like, you know, not kind of cause a problem. But she said you'd either come in and you'd be way happy, over the top, joyous, and like putting music on really loud and potentially like upsetting the neighbours and so on, or you'd come in and be mournful and depressive and upset, and it would be like one or the other. And for me, I didn't really realise, you know, when you're down the pub with the lads drinking all the time, you don't really realise kind of that effect that you're having on people around you. And I think that for me, that's one of the most important things about drinking and so on. So I'm 43 now, and I got to the age of about 36, and I think probably around that time I started thinking, I need to do something about this. And if somebody had said to me like a couple of years before that I would be sober by the time I'm sort of 40, 41, I would have laughed in their face. Because my philosophy was always, you deserve those couple of drinks at the end of the day, you know. And we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? Like, you know, as adults, you know, we are actually, you know, human beings. One of the things that separates and differentiates us from animals is that we are searching for stimulation for the brain. We are looking for that kind of a way to kind of change our neurology, if you like. And I think alcohol is the easiest and simplest way for people to do that. So I think from my perspective, I just could not imagine a life without it. I was heavily into music culture, going to gigs, going to London and so on. I was heavily, and I still am heavily into football for my sins, following West Ham. And so drink was always part of it, you know. So I never ever imagined the possibility of getting sober. And the reason why I say this to people is because, you know, you might be sitting there thinking, I can never live without, you know, a beer at the end of the day. I can never live without a couple of wines with my meal when I go out with the missus or whatever it is. I can never live without that, you know, whiskey with my dad, you know, of an evening. And I was exactly like that. And I sat there thinking, there's no way I can do it. And it's through a lot of hard work, will, support, and so on, that I was able to get sober. And I'm not sitting here saying that there's anything wrong with people having a couple of drinks every night. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that if it's not affecting your life or people around you. But if you're sitting there thinking, or have ever thought, well, I might have a bit of a problem here, and if it's, you know, in your brain where you're kind of thinking, oh, I feel a bit peaky, I'm looking forward to having my next drink later on, then you might have a problem. You know, you might have a problem. And I think it's something that's worth thinking about. And from my perspective, one of the reasons why I want to sort of do work with Denver and so on is that I want to help people and support men who are in a similar situation, who maybe think, this is a bit of a problem, I haven't got anyone to talk to about it, I don't know where to reach out for support. AA is a little bit maybe heavy or a bit too far, you know, like down the road for me, but I need somebody to talk to and someone to support me. And that's kind of what I want to move into and how I want to help people. So, you know, I have struggled, you know, with drinking, and it's still an ongoing battle. I think today I'm 49 or 50 days sober, and it goes in sort of waves. You know, there are times when I can't resist the urge and it becomes a bit of a problem, and it's normally around Christmas and around summer holidays. I'm sure we all had the same sort of thing where you think, pina coladas on the beach, or you know, a bit of eggnog, well not eggnog, but you know what I mean, a bit of mulled wine at Christmas, and so yeah, it's an ongoing battle for me, but you know, one of the reasons that I want to be sober, because there are times when I think, why am I bothering? Like, you know, I could probably get through life pretty comfortably still drinking, is that what sobriety gives you is time. Yeah, it gives you time. It gives you extra time in the day. And I remember when I was drinking, I never really had free time, because that free time was drinking or hungover. And there's a really interesting stat that came out on Alcohol Change last month, which said that the average person spends 10 days of a year hungover, yeah? So doing nothing with your life. And I think I've got a very short time on this earth. And, you know, for me, I want to kind of try and make the most of it as best I can. And so I think, yeah, there is, for me, life is better. I have more time, I have more energy. Sometimes, you know, it's a bit boring. You know, sometimes you have to kind of find a new way of life and new hobbies and new things to do. But that's, you know, something that I've kind of got to work and learn on. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about that. And then obviously tying into that is my business, Liquid Choices. So as someone who wanted to get sober, I like to go out. Like I said, I like to go to the football, I like to go and go to bars and pubs. I don't want to become a hermit, because I think a lot of people who do get sober end up kind of just staying indoors and reclusing themselves. So what my wife and I tried to do, what we're attempting to do is start a business, a CIC, that aims to make alcohol-free options better across the retail and the hospitality sector. So as Denver's alluded to, we've got a few bits and bobs, a few selections like for you guys here to try and to see what it's all about. You know, but it's hard work. It's hard work to get alcohol-free options that are robust and flavoursome into bars and so on. It shouldn't be, but the hospitality sector and the drink sector is a difficult animal, and that's probably a chat for another day on another topic. But it is that's kind of the goal. So tying it back into DadSpace, one of the reasons why I think it's really important to think about drinking is because it's my belief that alcohol makes dads more vulnerable. Yeah, I feel like culturally we're in a very interesting space in the modern Western world, aren't we? You know, where men are, you know, we've been sort of vilified, we've been told that masculine traits are toxically masculine. You know, we've been told that, you know, men essentially aren't hugely relevant necessarily to society, and we've seen the rise of the single family. We've seen men kind of pushed to one side, and I myself, I know I'm not the only person in the room, but you know, Phil, my good mate, has been through a similar thing, and I'm sure maybe some people in the room have, going through the court system where you potentially are unable to see your kids and that sort of stuff. So that's another thing that I'm very interested in and that I want to move towards, is talking about parental alienation and so on, as you know, as I sort of move through this sort of business, like what I'm doing now, and then moving into that. But fundamentally, I think it's all tied in, and I think if you've got a society where men are regularly and repeatedly drinking alcohol, that damages the fabric of your society, and it damages the person that it is. And like I say, some people are able to drink sort of smaller amounts and be able to kind of cope with that. But one thing that people tend to remember is that alcohol is one of the most dangerous substances on the planet, you know. And David Nutt, a very famous professor, he worked for the government. He was advisor about health and so on, and he said to government officials at the time, this was sort of, I think, early noughties, he said that if alcohol was released now, it would be banned. It would be banned. So what did the government do? They sacked David Nutt. And David Nutt, lost his job, and he went on to create Sentia, which is over there, which is a spirit that works on your GABA neurotransmitter in your brain, rather than alcohol, which affects you in a chemical way. So, getting back to the point about, dads and so on, I think, you know, for me, there are other options. There are other options moving forward for men and for dads, and I think we've been kind of put into this place where alcohol permeates our sort of lives. Going down, having a beer, chatting with the lads, go and have a glass of wine with a meal and so on. And I don't think we necessarily realise how much damage alcohol is sometimes doing to us. And I talk to a lot of people about booze. I'm going away to Germany tomorrow to watch football, and I'll be around a lot of drinkers, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people who don't realise what it's doing to them, and they'll go, you know, I just have a couple of beers, get a bit tipsy, and then go to bed, and I'm up the next day. And I think that's fine, and that is fine maybe for them, but I think what I want people to think about as well more is not necessarily the times when you're out drinking, it's the day after, and then it's the next day after that, and it's how it affects your sleep, and how that sleep, you know, the sleep deprivation has a long-term effect on your decision making, on the choices that you're making when you're eating, and so on. And I think, you know, maybe that tetchiness that you have when perhaps you've had one too many the night before, and that all for me just sort of hit home, you know. And I've got four children, and 3 of them are under 6. So the thought now of being hungover is not ideal, you know what I mean? So like, they're up early in the morning, and I kind of need to be my best self to be able to not murder one of them. So for me, it's kind of been a lot easier than it is for some people to quit and to kind of and to address that issue of drinking. So that's kind of really, in a nutshell. I mean, I could talk and bore the life out of you all night about alcohol and statistics and so on, but I mean, that's kind of really the main things about what I wanted to say. I think that this place in particular is a really positive thing. Sorry, one thing Denver did ask me to talk about a little bit, which I just sort of remembered then, is just about the family and how it affects family. And I did touch on earlier. I've been to court 5 times to take my ex-wife to court for not custody, but for with regards to joint parental responsibility. So when I think it was 2014, I know, it was November 23rd, 2014, I was kicked out of my family home in Headcorn, and I went to live in Folkestone, and what I didn't realise then was that there would be a sort of fairly targeted and systematic kind of approach by my ex-wife to get me kind of out of the picture. And I think when you're a man in your 30s, and my ex-wife, she took the baby away, and she was 5, my daughter then, and she went to live with her parents in Croydon. I think her thought process was, Trevor will just go and get pissed and like go and sort of, mess about with girls or whatever, and sort of he'll be off the scene. And I was very adamant, coming from a single parent family myself. My mum pretty much raised me, and she was an immigrant to this country, so it was hard. I was adamant I wanted to be around for my daughter, and you know, I found that that process was very, very difficult. And I think that, again, probably a talk for another time, but the system, once again, is not fairly, it's massively skewed against men. And it is very, very difficult to maintain that. However, I have been to court 5 times, and for the most part, I have managed to have around about 40%, 45% of time with my oldest daughter, which has been a real positive. So again, the less I've drunk, the easier that process has become, and the clearer it has been for me to be able to kind of you know, push forward with what I've wanted, and having, you know, having Kafkas come round, all that sort of stuff. It's much easier if you haven't got, you know, empty vodka bottles and so on sort of strewn all over the place and stuff. So so yeah, I mean, that's kind of all really I wanted to say. I mean, I could, like I say, I could go on for a lot more, but happy to leave it there, and if there's any questions, then go for that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, any questions? Haven't got any?
Not question as such, just a comment. So much of what you said was relatable.
Oh, thanks. Cheers, man.
Some quite a lot of non-alcoholic drinks, and yeah, bit hit and miss. I'm looking forward to seeing what's there. But yeah, like some of the things you said about my wife and I recently had a conversation where she described me as being unpredictable. Part of the reason that I wanted to give up was it would sometimes exacerbate my mood. So if I was in a good mood, it made me really happy, jolly, or if I was in a shit mood, then it would make me even worse. Sometimes you just didn't know which one it was going to be. I'd either be life and soul of the party, I'd be pissed off wanting to break something, or I'd want to be sitting and crying in the corner. But I didn't know which one it was going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I worked in pubs for years as well. So.
And it's endemic, isn't it? It's part of a culture, isn't it? It's like drinking and potentially drug taking and so on. It's all, you know, it's part of it, isn't it, I think?
A couple of years ago, I was diagnosed autistic as well, and I always felt like there was something different about it. I could never sort of put my finger on it until much later in life. And I think a lot of my sort of late teens, when I first started working in a pub, a lot of that kind of made all of that feeling different go away. It was kind of all, we were on the same level now. I didn't have that anxiousness about social interactions, anything like that. Kind of made things easy. Yeah. And so to go out and to socialise, like, it's still difficult for me. Like, I find it difficult to make friends, to have conversations, to know what to talk about, that kind of stuff, without that social lubrication.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's the part of it. Like, I mean, I got diagnosed with ADHD a couple of years ago, and again, it sort of helped explain why I was self-medicating to such a degree, because you don't fit in necessarily. You're not neurotypical like everyone else in school, for instance, was tricky for me, because my parents were immigrants from Africa, and they came to this country. And I remember, actually, my dad, do you ever remember, obviously, Italia 90, England, Gaza, Lineker, the Tears, and so on. So my dad, to try and assimilate me with British culture, bought me a West Germany zip-up top, which was his sort of way to try and go, yeah, Trev, got to get in the playground, son, and go and go. So that's kind of, yeah, so I feel your pain in that sense, that it is part of it. And I think when you stop drinking and you stop self-medicating, you can learn more about yourself, can't you? And you can go, okay, I've got these issues, how do I make them less prominent? And how can I be a better person for the people around me? And I don't know about yourself, but for me, I felt that when I was in my 20s and certainly early 30s, I loved the highs and the lows, and I wanted that excitement of life, and I wanted to go and get smashed at the Rage Against the Machine concert, and, you know, then sort of live through the hangover and the come down, all that. And now it's like, it's give me steady, you know, and it's much easier to manage. So no, thanks for that, man. I appreciate that.
I think it makes you, you talk about kind of the issues with men and alcohol and going to the pub and everything. I think for me, one of the things about drinking a lot is it's kind of an escape to a problem. All the time that you're kind of just escapism, you're not actually solving the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've still probably got a few problems to solve, but I've worked on a lot of them, which never would have happened probably if I'd have just gone, shit day, and a can.
Yeah. But I think those are the options you have, don't you? You have the option of, I can go through life, I keep hearing this term on Twitter, NPC, like non-player character. So not entirely sure I like, but you could go through life and kind of block out the rest of the world and keep drinking and go through your, world in your little bubble. Or, for me, I don't know, the way I look at it is life is a roller coaster. No, life is you need to learn, you need to work it out. There's a lot to work out there, and there's a lot to work out about yourself and about the world that we live in, okay? And I think that if you are drinking, it is, you can't do that. The Arabic, alcohol, it comes from an Arabic word, al-kul, which means body eating spirit. Okay, so if you think of it that way, and you think about how potentially the world is constructed and so on, alcohol could potentially have been created to make you sort of separate from your true self. I don't want to get too spiritual in this one, but that for me is something that as I've gone through my journey, I believe, because I think alcohol does not make you yourself, and if you want to get to higher realms, etc., you're not going to do it through drinking alcohol regularly. So I think, well done, man, on your journey. Very good.
Yeah, no, I just want to touch on a point you said there about obviously when you was taken out of the family home. And do you think that was your drive to sort of stop the alcohol at that point there, where you sort of you obviously went to Folkestone, didn't you, like that, and obviously you sort of said to yourself that you don't want to be that person, that guy. Was it around that point when it was, I mean, I don't know if you was drinking at that point, or was it? Is that almost your drive to stop that? Or?
No. I mean, it would be good for the story if it was, wouldn't it? But no. I've got to be honest. And in that stage when I was getting divorced, I was drinking heavier than ever. I met my current wife, and she was drinking. She was younger than me. She was 10 years younger than me. She was drinking a lot, and she was born and bred in Folkestone. So we were, and I think it just kind of made things harder. But as time, for me, like I said, I've come from. I think we don't really know the family history, but I'm pretty convinced we've come from a long line of alcoholics. And I know I never met my biological grandfather, but my biological grandfather was a womanizer, was an alcoholic, was violent with women and so on. My dad, I watched him be relatively unpleasant to my mum and so on, and he died of lung cancer when he was 62. He was also a heavy drinker, and so when my dad died, I stopped smoking, because that you're not going to get a better sort of trigger to stop you doing something than that. I was very, very close to my dad. He was a very good friend of mine. But then I think, I don't know, the subconscious is such a powerful thing, and I don't know whether throughout my whole life my subconscious has maybe been going, drinking's not for you, Trevor. And also, I think another thing, men like challenges, whether we're climbing mountains or we're riding through the Alps, whatever it is, men generally like challenges. And I think for me, I knew that the biggest challenge of my life would be to quit drinking. And I haven't done it, really. I've done it for long periods of time, but I haven't actually nailed it. So I think, in answer to your question, I think the idea has always been there. I think that I was managing my drinking because I was sort of early 30s, and I think you can when you're a bit younger. Then sort of after that, I kind of just realised this isn't working for me, and it's making me a worse dad, and it's making me a worse person. And people, some of the things I did, I mean, I've written books, and so you can buy, not here to sell anything, but my books are out there, like Sunny Sands and so on, and it documents a lot of my life story and how I was and how I behaved, and some of the things I did, I'm just embarrassed by, and I'm sure a lot of people are when they're drunk, but when you're kind of a bit of a, you're a bit of a face in Folkestone and you're acting like a complete knob on a regular basis, like it does kind of, motivate you to kind of give up. So I think that that's kind of, the idea was always there, but it came sort of 36, 37. I was a bit 3 or 4 years on from that, Hi.
You mentioned about drinking being a thing you look forward to at the weekend, or like that enjoyable thing. And obviously, since quitting drinking or trying to quit drinking, what sort of things do you look forward to now? Quite a few, and you look forward to at the weekend, doing instead of the drinking.
That's a great question. because it's hard. I think, like I say, learning more about myself. I'm ADHD, so I love dopamine, so I love that hit and that quick initial kind of buzz of excitement. So I think your life changes, and I think for me, it's changed. I'm sort of more into plant-based stuff, plant-based medicines and things like that, which I think can really, really help and have a positive impact on people's lives. But I think for me now, I love doing sort of more into kind of gym, more into kind of weights and sort of and doing cardio and so on at the gym, which I think is massive. And for anyone who's got any sort of neurodivergence, doing an hour of cardio for me is like the best thing I can do for my brain, just to get me started in the morning. So I think that's massive. Family time, man. Like I've really become that kind of a little bit cringy dad. I've got 3 days away now, and I'm actually, rather than thinking, booze and lads, I'm thinking I'm really going to miss my kids. Do you know what I mean? So I do think that that I know it's a really sort of typical answer for this sort of question, but I do find that quality time's really important. I find like I say, you've got more time when you're not drinking to sort of indulge in your hobbies. So for me, it's picking up the guitar, playing a bit of PlayStation with the lad, and just sort of embracing your quality time a bit more, I guess. Yeah.
Sort of grateful more.
100%. Yeah. It's all those things, you say to yourself when you're going to stop drinking, I'm not going to be that guy who's eating brown rice and doing this and going to the gym and running marathons and doing a gratitude list. But you do, because I think that I think you do feel more grateful, and I think that absolutely I'm grateful for what I've got, and I value and I find more value in the things that I used to do, but used to do them kind of half-heartedly, like writing half-heartedly, and like now I put more stock into it, I put more time into it, I put more energy into making my music and stuff like that. And I think stopping the drink allows you that focus, because the amount of times I did things half-assed because I was hungover or because I was drinking. And some of the greatest writers in the world were pissheads and alcoholics, like F. Scott Fitzgerald, like Great Gatsby, and you can see the bits where he's sober are unreal in the books, and then the bits where you can see, oh God, that didn't quite work. Do you know what I mean? So I think, that's kind of how I view it a little bit.
No, I don't. I'll touch on something. We're a similar age, so the drinking culture for me, going back from the 90s. And I understand a lot of what you said there. And not in any way have I had a problem with alcohol, but aggressive drinking, I called it. I look back and I talk to my mates about it now. When we go out and we say like that whole period of time there in the 90s was just seeing how quickly you could get smashed, because the pubs were shut at 11. Yeah. Nightclubs were shut at 2, and you're on the
timer.
You're on the timer, and it come sort of towards the end of the 90s. It come in the Alco Pops sort of come in, didn't they? Like WKDs and all these sort of drinks that were being made. Hooch, Two Dogs. All these drinks are trying to make it more and more appealing for everyone to drink alcohol. Yeah. And I look back at that time and I think there's a when I say blame, but a lot to answer for in the aftermath now of people from that period of time, because it was aggressive drinking. It was you just there and seeing how quickly you could get smashed in a very, very small period of time every weekend, or going out in a week. You're going out 2 or 3 times in a week, then going out a Friday night and a Saturday night, maybe not Sunday, and then back on it again by the Tuesday. And it was just, obviously you're younger then, but you look back and you think, do you think that it's helped where pubs now don't have that time restriction on closing?
I think that helps, and I think that the education and the knowledge that's out there now, for people is much better, because I think I don't know, when I like you sort of literally reminded me of growing up, and and you used to just have the ashtray, and you go into the pub and it'd be just smoke, wouldn't it? And your choice would be Stella or Kronenberg, where I lived, pretty much. And you'd just be like, oh, I'm a bit edgy, I'm gonna have Kronenberg, and like had them those glasses with a little bit. But it's there was no education, was there? So you just drank, because that's what you did, and that's what the men did. And like I say, I grew up in a suburb of London, and it was people, it wasn't. anything culturally exciting or stimulating. It was like, you know, granite and like boring houses and so on. And so what did you do to escape? You drank, and that's what I did. And I think now, I think one thing is that people are a bit priced out of the market. I think when you're going down the pub and you're sort of paying £7 on average for a beer, I think that, you know, maybe people can't go and have 12 pints necessarily 3 times a week. But I think the knowledge and the education's there, and, you know, people have got to really wise up to the fact that, you know, alcohol is a huge cause of cancer. It's a huge cause of mental health issues. It's a huge cause of, you know, violence in the homes and so on. And it's not just the kind of, you think, oh, well, I don't come home and beat my wife up, you know, so therefore I'm all right. But it's not just that, is it? It's the next day when you're not yourself and all that, and you're sort of driving erratically or what, you know. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, I don't want to preach, but like it's kind of, I hope, my hope is that the next generation, like our kids, won't drink. They just won't, because I think that they've seen the dangers, they've seen it's a bit old hat now, isn't it? And it's like, I don't know what they're going to do, but hopefully they do something a bit cooler than boozing all the time.
I think that has started. I think there's a lot of the youngest generation are now.
Yeah.
We are now, but like a lot of people aren't drinking.
No. They say that. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the stats, because I work as an alcohol change ambassador, and it's something like 26% of people now don't drink, and obviously between 18 and 25 that's much higher, but I don't want to misquote it. But yeah, people aren't. They're just not interested, are they?
Because my wife has never she'll occasionally drink, very occasionally, and has always had the, what do you mean you don't drink? You know,
Yes.
Down, and there's kind of that you know, go back even probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That would be you'd sort of raise an eyebrow. It'd be a bit weird. You don't
What's wrong with you?
You
Yeah.
don't drink at all.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's becoming
more culturally
a
acceptable.
lot more kind of acceptable for the younger generation.
Yeah.
So by the time, you know, some of the older generations have moved on, then
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, the problem, like I say, one of the things for Liquid Choices is that you know, we struggle with pubs having decent stuff. I mean, we drink round the corner, don't we? What's that called now? The Goddington pub? New Chimneys, whatever, yeah. And they've got Heineken Zero on tap, and Heineken Zero, it's not the greatest drink in the world, but it does do a job. And like elite pubs, which is Pig and Stein, I don't know, they've got a really good low and known. So one of the things we want to do is make it, and I'm hoping, I'm not saying that we're going to make it like this, but what we want is to be part of a movement where, you know, my kids or whatever will go to pubs, and you'll have a low and no menu that is exactly the same as an alcohol menu, and it's just normalised that, you know, you do one or the other. Whereas, like I say, you know, 5 years ago, if you didn't drink, you'd be like, you've got a problem. You know, it's just, you know, you
you could find that Beck's Blue, and that'd be about it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem for people like us, is like a lot of bar owners and hospitality people go to us, no, alcohol-free stuff's crap, and that's because of Beck's Blue, Heineken, well, I don't want to name names, but certain beers like that, and, you know, certain spirits that came out early on and weren't necessarily that flavoursome, but I think we're in a much better place now. So I think, just hopefully the bars will catch on. Yes.
And you touched on the difference over the last couple of years of drinking. Obviously, you go back 5 years, pubs and clubs and whatnot, and then we had COVID. And it was obviously everyone was at home, of course businesses closing down, and people got creative as to how they can sell their product. And I got a couple of like gift sets and like a gin box of different things and all sorts of bits and pieces. So how do you think that played the sort of like home delivery of alcohol in sort of like the COVID scenario?
Yeah.
Have you got any stories of that from your experience of being in the alcohol industry throughout that?
I'm a massive conspiracy theorist, so don't get me started, man. But I mean, my feelings are that COVID, I won't go too deep into my thoughts, but I think that it did help big business hugely, and I think it did help, the stats are there for everyone to see. More people drank, didn't they? And the more people developed alcohol-related issues because they were able to push booze more, and because people were cooped up and they were in unnatural environments, you know, create a society where a lot of people have got neurodivergence, and, you know, ADHD wasn't around in the 70s and the 60s, but since the advent of screens being everywhere and so on, loads of people have got these issues because so if you've got people who have got these issues and then you're saying right, stay in your house and maybe on Thursday come out and bang a pot, but that's it, and then you get back in your house, then obviously people are going to be like that and feel stressed and cooped up and so on. So then the drinking comes in more and the drinking exacerbates the problem. So I think COVID had a huge impact, and I think it was a negative impact on the whole. But again, it depends on your circumstances. I was very lucky. Like for me personally, COVID, I was with my little kids. Like they were 3 and 2 at the time, I think. And the other one wasn't born. Yeah, and I was around them, and I was in the family home, and my wife doesn't drink, so for me it really helped. So, but it's everyone's different circumstance, isn't it? I think on the whole, it's a massive problem. And now I don't know whether this happened before COVID, but you go on to Just Eat and get a kebab, and I think all of them now sell booze, don't they? They deliver booze to your door and all that, which I think is. It's a dangerous thing. But like I say, the general vibe is that I hope people are, sort of turning away from it.
Yeah, really. Thanks for telling your story.
No problem, man.
Really inspiring, and just to your point, alcohol creates a compliant population, right? People don't tend to organise themselves or sort of get anything done when they're all pissed up, and if they do, it's for the first hour when you've got that high, and then essentially that peters off, and then you had another 5 pints, and you've sort of forgotten whatever magic you might have come up with at the beginning that you're going to go on a fishing trip or you're going to climb that mountain.
Yeah.
And the next day you can give a fuck about anything.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it. I don't talk to my kids or whatever. That for me is when it really hit home, when I got just way too drunk. Just that classic kind of, once you get past that point, it's like, well, I'm invincible now.
Yeah.
I can do everything.
Yeah.
I can drink everything. I'll drink everyone under the table. I'm tiny and I shouldn't be able to, but I could, just because there's that kind of, it gives you that energy and power. And then the next day, like you say, you turn past 35, 40 and you feel terrible, like proper terrible. And then your kids are really demanding at the same time. You're like, this isn't right. This is so wrong. I've got to do something about it. And I've just found whatever higher power that I found is sobriety, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I stopped drinking, and I don't know how I found the book, but I don't know if you know Alan Carr's The Easy Way. Yeah. That was just like, wow. I literally read it, listened to it. I took one day, listened to it for 6 hours. That was it.
Done.
I haven't drunk since. I dream about it sometimes. I get really annoyed with myself.
Yeah.
I've had a beer. I've really annoyed.
Yeah.
To die.
Yeah.
Like, oh, damn, shit. And that doesn't happen so much. It's just a beer, which hopefully things moving in the right direction.
100%, yeah.
I love what you're saying about, like, I know why pubs and drinks trains aren't taking these drinks, because there's lots of these amazing drinks, and they don't want them because they want to keep the culture.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There's that documentary where they're pushing alcohol in Africa big time. And they get more and more Africans hooked.
Right.
I'll show you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
But just to make a point, is that I think it needs to be taken away from the breweries and the pubs, and take it out of their hands, and that there's non-alcoholic venues.
Yeah.
And it will just completely draw a different crowd, and you'll have to, whatever that is and whatever that means, there should be lower overheads, because I'm sure most of alcohol is taxed. But
you
it's
don't
like,
get duty.
why they're just non-alcoholic venues?
So they did great points, by the way, that's brilliant. But yeah, they did a non-alcoholic bar in Brighton. I knew the owners, Emmy and Lou, I think his name is, because they came on our podcast. We got a podcast, Liquid Choices. But they were great guns, going brilliantly, like all in last year, September, October, loads of people coming. Then they got a noise complaint, right? And it was like, this is Brighton. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what? Like, as a noise complaint from the not drunk people. And they were like, yeah. And then, cut a long story short, it got closed down. So I don't know the ins and the outs of what happened, but, if you were slightly, thinking things, they didn't want these sorts of things, then, there you are. But it would be lovely to see a future where there's a non-alcoholic bar in every town. Ashford 100% is nowhere near ready. We've got Club Soda in London, which is non-alcoholic bar, which run by Laura Willoughby. Is a very interesting, very knowledgeable lady about this sort of stuff. but it's slow to grow because I think people are nervous. I think alcohol-free products, the price of them as well, high quality ones are ridiculous. A lot of the pushback I get is, what, you want £27 for a bottle of Pathfinder? I was like, it's amazing. Like, you will love it. It's totally unique. It's totally botanical. Juniper, herbs, People are like, well, I'll get a bottle of vodka for 15 quid. And you think, and that's what you're battling against. So I love the idea, and I think it's, my feeling is that people who are alcohol free and people like us, men, are marginalised in society. That's the bottom line. It's the society that they wish to create and the society that has been created. The importance has been sort of relativised, if that's the word. So it's down to sort of groups like this. We've got to create WhatsApp groups. We've got to come together and provide strength and provide unity and provide community, so that we can build things like that and have a place for people, because this is great, but wouldn't it be nice if we had a nice cosy place where we could get high quality drinks and cheap and so on. But yeah, that'd be the dream, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And a few people have mentioned different books and things that they read. What sort of podcasts or books have you read that you could recommend to the readers as well?
Great question. Alan Carr, Quit Drinking Your Way, I think it's called.
It was the How to Control Alcohol.
Okay.
But my mate said, spoiler alert, there's no way of controlling it.
Yeah.
At the end of the book, that's the only way to do it. But.
Yeah. But the way Alan Carr writes, he did it for smoking, and he did it for a few things, didn't he? But the way he writes is dead simple, isn't it? It's like easy to understand, like Idiot's Guide to, this is what this stuff's doing to you, stop doing it, basically. And then you go, fuck, right, yeah. but so I thought that was great. I think that So I've written about this in my book, How to Handle Your Drinking Demons, which is available on Amazon. Little plug there. But no, I put a lot of Quitlit in the back of my book that I liked. And I read a lot of the ladies, like Catherine Gray, she's a famous Quitlit author. And off the top of my head, I can't think of others. But Sober Dave, I went on Sober Dave. He's very, very popular in the sober community. He was a big drinker, really nice, sort of friendly bloke. He does a podcast. And I think the Menace to Sobriety podcast is something that I listen to, which is Dapper Laughs. People might remember from Big Brother and all that. And he's now sober, and been sober for a long time. And for someone who built his whole persona on lads, cocaine and booze and birds, to then do that has been quite brave. And he's caught a lot of flack for that. So I've got quite a lot of respect for him. I listen to Spencer Matthews, Big Fish. He's quite interesting because he's got Clean Company, Clean Co, which is he does everything now, gin, tequila and so on. Don't know whether the products are any good. I've not tried them, to be honest. But so there is a lot out there. And for me, as soon as I wanted to stop, I just swallowed everything. And even if you think that the ladies' books talking about the wine witch and all that aren't relevant, they really are. They really are to you. And I think read as much as you can. Fundamentally, alcohol-free drinks were stigmatised a little bit, and they were believed to be part of the issue, and so could be triggering. And for some people who are really, really heavy drinkers and who have gone down the AA route, alcohol-free drinks are seen as really, really bad. I know people in AA who are like, you drink alcohol-free drinks? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, can't do that. And I was like, okay. So I think that... with regards to kind of, there's a split opinion. Alcohol Change did a study which said that alcohol-free drinks help heavy drinkers in a lot of cases, and I think that has opened up the debate and so on. I think the rise in spirits that are kind of botanical and using a lot of natural products and so on has been a massive thing, and I think has made it basically quite trendy and cool for the fresh young things to be drinking, and I think that has massively helped. The kind of groups that I'm in on Facebook are sort of out of Dry January and sort of sober groups and so on, and they're often sharing new drinks and so on. And I think that there's a real positivity around it. But like I say, the prices are extremely expensive, and I think a lot of people find that difficult, and I think that is something that needs to be addressed really a higher level than this, but we're a long way from that, unfortunately. But I think, like I say, there's a move towards it. I think, and I'm hoping that, hoping for me, if people can sort of see that I can get sober. You know, I was 23 stone, I was running a bar, I was having 10 beers a day, then on the spirits and shorts, you know, and that was my life, you know. And then to come to where I am now, where I'm, you know, generally pretty much like kind of sober and so on, you know, I'm hoping that if I can do it, anyone can do it. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of my vibe, so yeah.
Can I just ask about like you say like the price out in the market maybe like £27 for a bottle of spirits? I guess I presume that your products are subject to the duty and some of the VAT rules and stuff like that that alcohol products are. Because what drives that cost? Is it just the volume that you're able to produce at and sell at? And you know, is there like going back to what you were saying earlier, you know, are the pubs disincentivized to stock them or try and push them? Because basically, if I go in and have 6 vodkas, I'm probably going to have another 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
I guess how do the economics of it work, and how do we change those economics? Because I was wondering, like you were talking earlier, about 30 years ago, when I watched on Irish TV, the Ballygowan came out, and they were like, "You're going to get people to go to the pub and buy sparkling water." You know, it was almost like, a comedy show. They were like, "You want people to buy sparkling water in the pub where you can get beer?" You can insane.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're battling a little bit. But just there's a few questions in there. But I mean, fundamentally, the alcoholizing alcoholic products is incredibly expensive process. So I think that is one of the reasons that I'm given for the price of certain things. I think that high quality alcohol-free products, like, I mean, Sentia is pretty good, you know, and like, obviously because it's a GABA spirit that works, it gives you the buzz on your neurotransmitter. There's a lot of science, techie stuff and natural ingredients that go into it that drive the price up. Why your average sort of pint of beer, I suppose it's the alcoholisation price. I suppose that is actually why, yeah, the price is higher. But you're right, you don't pay duty on non-alcoholic products. So it is something that needs to be looked at and needs to be addressed. But yeah, hopefully that sort of answers. Because there's a little bit.
I hadn't realised actually you sort of distilled the spirit and then the alcohol.
Yes, and that's expensive. And just back to your point, I think without really getting incredibly boring about the drinks picture, like nationally, fundamentally, regionals and national brands will not touch people like me going, "Hi guys, do you want to buy this cool stuff?" Because they are totally controlled, and what they can put into their bars, it'll be Heineken Zero and it'll be their products that they're allowed to do. And there's like a 99-year lease on what they can serve and so on. So fundamentally, they don't want new stuff in there, because essentially if people are drinking beer all day, then they're dehydrating and they're drinking water, like you said, and you're going to keep going the process, keep eating your crisps that's salty, and you know, it's a cycle, isn't it? Whereas if you're drinking I have a nice pint of non-alcoholic beer, I'll have one and then I go, you know what I mean? So I'm not the market. So yeah, I hope that sort of answers it, you know.
Thank you for coming, Trevor. I think it's really, really interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cheers, thanks. Appreciate it.
I think it'd be nice for us to all have a if everyone wants to have a drink for some of what
Have a little
what
break.
Trevor's brought, and we'll get a photo.
Things we've got here, your Sentia Black, Sentia Red. Sentia, these are, like I say, there's a lot of science about it that I'm not going to bore you with, but fundamentally these are natural, gluten-free, vegan products, okay? They claim and assert to give you a bit of a like a 2-drink buzz, if you like. Days Pale Ale is a fantastic non-alcoholic beer that I think if you try it, you'd probably agree that it tastes just like kind of a regular beer. These are Citizen Spirits. This one has won an award. I really like this because it's basically like squash. So you essentially put a tiny little bit in a glass and you fill it up with soda water or whatever you want, pink lemonade, like, you know, whatever tickles your fancy basically, but they suggest soda water, and it creates a really, really nice cocktail. So there's that, which is like Aperol, that which is like Mojito, and that, what was that like, Phil?
Peachy.
Peachy, according to Phil. So, I mean, there you go.
So this one here, you said put like a if you're doing cordial.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And then you'd have that with
sparkling water.
Yeah,
they
sparkling water,
say. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it can be quite nice sometimes, especially
Yes.
I'm in like safety critical role in rail, so like you're always conscious about not having a beer.
Yeah.